approaching every conversation relationship authentically. Not what can you get from them, but what can you learn from them? If your cup isn't full, how are you going to pour into somebody else's cup? So we want to be around high performers that are chasing after, being the best. Our buy box, as it stands today, is e-commerce. There's low employee count typically in e-commerce businesses, right? There's a lot of outsourced services. Teams are kind of smaller, but they're also businesses that could be ran anywhere in the world.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Keep going. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Zack Miller, and he's the founder and CEO of Patriot Growth Capital, where he's living a mission that's deeply personal, empowering veterans and their families to rewrite their futures. Inspired by the values instilled in him as a child of 2 US Marines, discipline, service, and resilience, he's built a firm that's as much about impact as it is about business. And by helping veterans become business owners, they're not just creating opportunities, they're transforming lives, communities, and generations. And his career hasn't followed a traditional blueprint. It started later than most and has been shaped by diverse experiences, from driving growth in high-tech startups, closing multi-million-dollar partnerships in the collegiate athletics world. Each step, each challenge has taught him something invaluable: the importance of persistence, the strength in humility, and the necessity of focusing on what truly endures. Welcome, Zack Miller. Thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks for having me, Athin. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So yeah, for those people who don't know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Well, the journey, kind of as you said, right, it started a little later than normal. Grew up playing sports, son of two Marines. Was told to me often, you're gonna be a professional athlete, you're gonna go to the Marine Corps, or you can work at McDonald's. Those kind of my three options I was given on a daily basis. Pretty firm parenting, but instilled a lot of values in me. And I chased the sports angle. Had a passion for music as well, writing, recording. Multi-instrumentalist. And as soon as I reached the collegiate athletic level, I got hurt and injured. My knee and my shoulder got pretty banged up, and I saw that as an opportunity to chase music. So, from about, I've been playing music since I was 13, but from about 21, 20 to, I don't know, 25, I really, got after it and got out on the tour circuit, and, was fortunate enough to open up for bands like Disturbed, and some more hardcore metal bands like Poison the Well, some bands that we really looked up to as kids, and chase that dream, right? And so I had like multiple chapters leading up to real life, and then I came off the road one day, and the biggest thing for me was never having to ask my father or anybody for anything. And I quickly realized all the meals, all the merch, the sticks, that the drum heads, all that stuff was kind of paid for while you were on the road. But you constantly had to kind of jump back into a job that you could obviously leave really quick, whether it's landscaping or running HVAC, duck and serving tables, right? I was always trying to make ends meet before we would go back out on the road. And I just came off the road one day and needed some help from my father. And that was kind of a light bulb moment for me to get back into school. So, I went back into to college at about 24 years old, still playing music, hadn't left that dream yet, but knew I needed to get a degree, knew I needed to figure out a way to start making some income. And, through the Art Institute of Atlanta, I got a Bachelor in Arts of Advertising. And the Art Institute of Atlanta is not necessarily an art school per se. It's not a SCAD, if you will. It's more of you get the business side of it and the creative side. And through that journey, me being an older student, I kind of knew what I needed to do to get ahead and to get through quickly, and to win over my teachers. And, there's this one opportunity where a gentleman named Ben Thomas, who's really high up in the ad agency world, came in to speak to our class. And at the end, he talked about internship, opportunities at an agency called 22 Squared, which in Atlanta, it's one of the largest full service agencies in the Southeast. They're awesome. Service a lot of the tier two automotive um, franchises and corporations, and among, Buffalo Wild Wings, some other really cool stuff. And through that opportunity, when he talked about internships, I already had a resume in my back pocket. None of the other students were even thinking about that, right? They just came to class that day. So, I immediately approached him afterwards, told him that I wanted, an opportunity for the internship. And he said, just check on the website and our social medias, that they'd be posting about it. So kind of stayed really locked to that, while I'm serving tables and bartending and doing any odd and end job I can do to make, 300, $500 a week, right? That was a win for me at that time in my life. And then I saw the advertisement, on Facebook at that time, right? We're talking 2009, 2010, before brands are really out there, but the agencies were keen to it. And there was an opportunity for the internship. So I came in one of 230 people and was selected, 8 people out of 230, to, through a very, very fun process where, again, I used my experience to my advantage. And, I kind of grew up always cold calling for my father's businesses as well. So I knew how to build a relationship and how to sell myself and sell other things. So, uh, I figured out who would be, managing me in that internship, and the sector. I was a social media strategist. I saw that whole team, met them when I was the one out of 230 people, and quickly found out, through stalking them on social media, that they were selling tickets for, some really cool festivals and some kind of personal hobbies, some of these specific team members. And so I reached out to Justin O, who works for Discord now, just had a tremendous career, and found out that I could buy tickets to this really cool, like, arts and, music festival, for Asian Americans. And it was called Collaboration with a K, and it was going to be held at a really cool music venue down in Midtown. So, I reached out to Justin on Facebook, right? Not through email, to his 22 Squared address, said, "Hey, I'd love to, grab some tickets for that," right? So he came over, and he actually brought another team member, Natalie Espanol, who was on the social strategy team at 22 Squared, to give me the tickets. And we met at a pizza shop, and I ended up, buying a pitcher of beer. Next thing you know, he buys a pitcher of beer. Next thing you know, Natalie buys a pitcher of beer. They're like, "You got the internship, bro." And I won that one over and got into 22 that way. And that's like many, many stories like that of my career. My first real job coming out of 22 was at a company called Vitru. It was a social relationship management company. Think like Hootsuite for the enterprise, or a Sprinkler, if you guys are familiar with that company. This was before all of that. And, a same thing. When I was selling art door to door, a year prior to all of this happening, I went into a startup, in an office. They were building it out. And Reggie Bradford, who's the CEO of Vitru at the time, he's in there kind of designing it with an architect. It's really cool, open concept. And I'm walking through, these office complexes, getting chased by security guards because, solicitation is illegal. And I ended up selling a painting to Reggie, uh, which was funny. And that, that was we could go in a whole nother direction with that job. But Reggie actually came into the bar once I was at 22 Squared, managing the social media for Payless Shoes, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Florida's Natural Orange Juice, using Vitru's software. He comes into the bar on a weekend. I'm not at the internship. I'm not at school. I'm working that day. And I knew who that was. I remember selling the painting. I take that table, and it's like a movie, right? I just did the best job I could do. And, he got up and I said, "Reggie, I've had an internship at 22. I'm using your software. I sold you a painting like a year ago." And he looked at me, he's like, "I thought I remembered you." And I was like, I want to work for you. I know everything about your software. I know everything about your competitors, and I want a shot to work with Vitru. And as his wife came up, she actually loaded the kids up in the car while I was talking to him, and then came back and kind of overheard me. And she's like, "Give this kid a job." And, on Monday, I got the job offer, and that really started my professional career. So, I spent 15 years selling ads, media, partnerships, right? But the first really 11 years of that, 10 years was kind of the software as a service space, SaaS space, in the media tech and ad tech world. So I've had an awesome career working for every startup that I worked for. Ended up, getting acquired for hundreds of millions of dollars, or went public. And I just had a ton of fun with that. So kind of leading up to the later half of my career, it was I was thinking about going into a different direction around 2017, 2018. The world was going a little nuts on social, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to start a family and was thinking maybe I need to go more into the financial planning space. I don't know why I was thinking that, but I had a great network of founders and and just very successful group of people around me. And I thought, if I could have my name on my kids', baseball field and be kind of the hometown hero and build something like that, a book of business that nobody can take away from me, where my quota is not changing, every year. That might be something I want to do. And then I got a call from Ming Wu, who was transformed my life, honestly. And I'd known Ming through conferences and through the ad space. He kind of was really very high up in leadership at OMD, one of the largest holding companies of advertising agencies in North America. And he was coming over to be the CEO of a company called Mogo. And Mogo was getting acquired by Learfield. And Learfield's the largest collegiate athletics multimedia rights holder. They basically sell anything that you see in those football stadiums, baseball stadiums. When the commentator reads the halftime report brought to you by Capital One, Learfield brokers that deal with Capital One. And he kind of told me, hey, nobody knows programmatic. We're going to build a first party audience because Learfield's acquired 12 companies over the last 50 years and they're sitting on a mound of first party data. And you know a lot about this space. We're going to build the train why it's rolling down the tracks, and you should come over and help me kind of build this first party audience. And I that was a back of the napkin conversation with Tommy Breedlove, who runs a mastermind. It's called Legendary, that I was a part of and I still am. And he just said, hey man, like, you can do financial planning or wealth advising if this doesn't work out, but you got a great opportunity in front of you. I think you should try it. And that was history. So the last 5 years, call it 2019 to 2025, I just had a blast building first party data products, building out teams across the whole North American property. So northeast, north, southwest, southeast, all that sort of stuff. The national teams, I got to literally build the teams, sell in the product, sell it internally, sell it externally. And the beauty about that is when COVID hit, nobody was going into the stadiums. So Learfield had a big problem on their hands, so they needed to de-risk hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And how they did that was through my digital product that we built. So I was in the right place at the right time and had a ton of success there. And then they brought me over to the national team, which is probably the hardest job in collegiate sports. And I got to manage SEC and ACC multimedia partnerships and had a blast doing that. And through all of that learning and wisdom, right, I quickly started realizing that being on the road nonstop, now I have a family, I needed to make a pivot. And through my relationship and my faith, it was really, how am I going to do good for others with the work that I'm doing in life? And not everybody can necessarily do that and mash that up, but I felt very compelled to make it happen. And lo and behold, that's how we kind of built, me and my partners, Patriot Growth Capital. So it's been a wonderful ride, man. And now we're serving veterans and creating generational wealth for family trees.
Yeah, awesome, man. I love that story. There was so much gold, in that, and I could see a few similarities. Funnily enough, with myself from the sporting background, from the music. I used to play piano growing up as well, and going to do studying later when you're older, which like I did too. Where you've got a bit more context, right? With what you're doing there. And I think one of the key things I love the door to door sales part, right? I think that what I tell people is I was lucky enough. It was later in my career, once I started my business, I got to work for a partner, and I did, yeah, door to door sales for about 6 months, right? Knocking on people's doors, getting a lot of no's, and just, keeping on going, that persistence type of thing, right? Just firstly, like, how important do you think is the skill of sales, for people in business, right? If they're going to really be successful.
What I think is, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur or build a business, um, your resources are limited out of the gate, right? And you got to make a lot happen. Now we have AI, right? And the ability to really scale through automation purposes. But ultimately, you have to sell yourself. You have to sell your business, whether it's pitching it to VCs or investors, or getting your first clients, right? Like, sales is necessary. And what I've seen is the most successful entrepreneurs, had come from that sales background, or done door to door sales, or have, had the lemonade stand, when they were kids. it's a massive attribute, and I think it can't go underlooked enough. Everybody needs to know how to sell because it's one thing that you could not automate.
Yeah, definitely. And if we take it to the next level, because you mentioned there before around like partnerships, and I think the key word is here like building relationships, right? With different people. You knew what you were doing
100%.
there. You've done it there. I think that's a extremely important skill. So what tips or something could you do for people about if they wanted to build a relationship, whether it's to get clients, to get partners, to get a job, whatever that is. What's something going to be key that someone's going, yeah, I want to do something with this person here. I want to do business with them.
Yeah, I think you got to be authentic first, right? Like it's kind of like being a content creator these days, which you hear a lot, right? You need to be yourself, right? There's nobody else like you. So one, people can sniff out, if you're not authentic. And that's just gonna, put you in the doghouse right away. I think being yourself and leading with your strengths allow you to be a little bit more normal and also shine through a little bit. One of there's a lot of different tips and tricks, to relationships. I mean, I'm very organized. So, I'll always keep a log. I have an Excel spreadsheet of all my contacts and the last time I've spoken to them. And, every birthday that pops up, I track that stuff and I make a phone call, right? I don't send a text. I don't send a LinkedIn or a Facebook. I always make the phone call. And I think just, you don't, early on in your life, it's smart to be at all the networking events possible. And also think like high tide raises all ships. Like get yourself into rooms where you're not the smartest person, where maybe you're not the most successful person, and figure out a way to deliver value, across those relationships. People value that, right? And sweat equity can get you a long ways when it comes to relationship. And even my mentor Chris Tuff, who was my manager at 22 Squared, right? He kind of led me to all my other jobs, right? So kind of being willing and kind of that competitor mindset, right? When there's 2 seconds left, kind of pass me the ball. I'm going to score the touchdown or make the goal. Like that's having that mindset of sink or swim and being able to swim is a big key attribute. Those first impressions are everything, but you kind of never know who's watching, right? So again, be authentic and ask for the opportunity and go for it, right? If you need help, you always got to ask for help. But ultimately, I think it's just, making the biggest splash possible when you can and delivering value at every side and just, again, approaching every conversation relationship authentically. Not what can you get from them, but, what can you learn from them? And something will peak out, right? And there may be an introduction or a concert or something, right, that you can then parlay that into and develop that deeper relationship.
Yeah, I love that, man. There was so much gold that you shared with us, and I love the old school type CRM that you were talking about. Basically, with Excel spreadsheet.
Oh yeah.
Keep it simple. When did you last contact them? Birthdays, all of that. Keep it personal. Build that relational capital. Add value, and anything can happen from there. So love it, man. Really, really powerful. Let's talk about Patriot Growth Capital now, right?
Sir.
I know with your partners, obviously with your parents' background, but you've also, it was founded by veterans for veterans. Why the veteran side of thing? I'd love to hear, the why behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So funny enough, right? In the masterminds groups, about 2 years ago, I'm realizing I've got the golden handcuffs going on. I'm trying to figure out again how can I not necessarily serve at all these different nonprofits when I'm, home from work? How can I do this in my day job? How can I serve other people and do good for the world with the gifts that God's given me? And I was talking through this. We were at Keeneland horse racetrack in Kentucky, and we did a bourbon tour with a legendary mastermind. And we at the end of that, everybody kind of had to talk about, the goal that they had in front of them. And right, then the group holds you accountable to that. And the beautiful thing is, right, like that's another high tides raise all ships. Like I'm not the most successful person in that group, and they can teach me a thing or two. And if I'm talking about, buying a business or starting a business, right, they have resources and people they can point me to help me with that. And I kind of spoke out. I wanted to, um, you know, buy storage units or laundry mats. And I wanted to do something different. And they were kind of pushing me, well, you're so good with health and nutrition too. I mean, that should be something you chase. And so I was kind of hearing it from both sides, but that almost felt not unnatural at all because I love it. I kind of nerd out to health and nutrition and longevity and biohacking and all that fun stuff. but it's a deeply personal thing for me as well. And monetizing it, I don't know if it would bring me as much joy. So, I looked at that as almost like my dad telling me to continue to play sports. And, I really kind of just told the group, like, I want to start kind of, I think I'm going to buy a business that's already profitable. Because I have so many skills within the marketing and ad space. I've been around, the best marketers in the world, and they're also good relationships of mine. So if I needed to bring them in as contractors and leverage some of their capabilities, that'd be pretty natural for me. So I kind of put that out there. And then at that event, Jonathan Bates, my partner, was there, and he kind of took me aside when I was done. I was like, "Hey man, what if we teamed up and we bought businesses that were already profitable, but we trained veterans how to be, the owners of the business or work within the business? What do you think about that?" And, that was something that I had to chew on for a minute, but I liked the idea of it. And about January of 24, like, because over Christmas, I was kind of planning out my goals. Again, I'm disciplined and organized. So I plan everything for the next year, kind of December 15th to January 1st. And I called him up before January 2024. And I said, "Bates, let's go for it. I'm going to burn the ships. I'm going to, just dissolve all my other LLCs, stop doing all these different newsletters. And, let's go all in on Patriot Growth Capital." And then it was birthed from there. So since January 24, we've been working on this mission and assembling really a kick butt team that, we all have strengths that serve us all, right? Like us together, our powers combined, like Captain Planet, we're pretty powerful force. And my entire group is made up of veterans. We have about 57 years of, military experience on the battleground. Like, these guys are just incredible operators, performers, and veterans, right? They've walked the walk. And I, of course, come from the military background with my parents. So the way that we, really what really hooked me in, starting to work with those guys in January and everything, the whole why for me specifically to serve the veterans was, watching my mom kind of chase the corporate path and my dad chasing the entrepreneurial path right out of the military. And they all experienced success, but ultimately setbacks. And that's because they didn't really, you know, my mom, being a female, through the 90s and things like that, had an opportunity to kind of get to the sea level. And then, things kind of went sideways in 2001 with the World Trade Centers, a lot of layoffs, economy kind of took a hit. And she was never really able to get back up to that level. And she's done well for herself. She's incredibly successful and has a great job now. But, I just kind of watched that, right? So climbing the ladder of corporate America, especially watching that growing up and knowing what I knew, it wasn't the path that I wanted to go. And then watching my dad build a business was really exciting. But, he put together a lot of handshake agreements and developed a lot of really good relationships. But again, in 2008, 2009, when we had our housing crisis here in North America, saw a lot of that go sideways, and ultimately he had to shut that business down. And again, right, like a veteran, like you realize the grit. Like my dad then builds a credit card processing and merchant service business, and is just crushing it now, right? So, he get knocked off the horse, he gets back on and goes and does it again. But I kind of watched those two scenarios. So my thought process here was, and it's very, very similar to what Bates, and Barnes and Zack Knight have all experienced, where, these veterans get out of the military and they don't necessarily know what to do. They're willing to work hard. But starting in the mailroom of corporate America just doesn't make sense when they've been leading teams, right? And they've been on the battlefield leading teams and doing some really high level reconnaissance and missions. So our thought process was, how do we allow them to start in Patriot Growth Capital's mailroom and every quarter and hand them more responsibility while paying them a six-figure salary, and give them those 10,000 hours of experience, really the Patriot Growth Capital MBA, and then ultimately hand them, a business, or where they can buy even a percentage of the EBIT of the business to become a veteran millionaire. So that's a lot, but the why is buried in there somewhere.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I love it. I love the Captain Planet analogy. Always fun growing up there. And and I love the partnership. Like you talked about it before with the building relationships and getting in the right rooms, right? You said something, but all of a sudden someone says something else. You're in a high level room there. All of a sudden, like, wait, this this makes sense to me. Your gut, your intuition, your instincts, whatever goes, yeah, let's delve into this a little bit more. And yeah, this makes sense. This feels right. Whatever it is, let's go ahead with it. And well done for doing that. And I think that's the rendition of partnering, which I love as well, right? Because it can be a lonely road, right? Being a sole
For
founder
sure.
of a company, and to be able to do it with other people that have similar values, same vision, can be a lot more fun, right? Enjoyable, and make a bigger impact, really, right? In that end as well.
Heck
So
yeah.
yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
Um, so so obviously you're investing in these types of businesses. Do you want to just share a bit about like how you're analyzing these deals? What types of deals are you looking at, right? For people that may be looking at, investing into businesses generally as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, our buy box, as it stands today, is e-commerce. Why do we choose e-commerce? One, there's low employee count typically in e-commerce businesses, right? There's a lot of outsourced services. Teams are kind of smaller, but they're also businesses that could be ran anywhere in the world, right? So when these men and women, um, are retired from the military, um, they have the opportunity to work from wherever there's internet service. Those are some of the reasons why we love it. But we're typically looking at kind of the e-commerce level of 1 to 1.5 million EBITDA up to about $4 million EBITDA. And we'll look at larger businesses as well, but we love that sweet spot, kind of buying on a multiple of 2 to 3.5x. And again, it's these businesses have kind of they've proven that they're stable businesses. We're also looking, our buy boxes, there's a lot of criteria within there, but we want them to be around for, 20 years because we don't want a veteran, owning and operating a business or a piece of a business that is a fidget spinner, if you will. But we love these type of businesses because they're lean, they're mean. The sellers have experienced tremendous growth and put some good standard operating procedures in place to get where they are, but they've hit its ceiling. And then we can bring in, our partners like Neil and Reed to come help us with operations and truly scale those businesses through the roof. So just a lot of potential. And again, we love the e-commerce vertical. There's just so much that can be done online.
Yeah, I love it. I love the specifics there, right? On how you're really clear. This is the area that we're looking at. And then how do we then make that happen? I love the low employee count. I think this is what I've seen a lot of businesses, especially like, through COVID and everything like that, where if they had a lot of people on the books with numbers and everything drops, you're in a challenging position, right? With everything like that. So very smart strategy going, how can we have the least amount of people in a business? Obviously, we can get partners or contractors or whatever in as needed to do certain functions, but, run it lean so that there's less overheads, right? Less risk,
Exactly.
but then much more bigger, upsides, right? And especially with e-commerce, once you get it right, then, it's very scalable as well, right? For that area too.
100%. 100%. And again, right, my marketing background and advertising background, it's just I understand programmatic, I understand media buying, right? And that's a lot of the gas or the gasoline you pour on the fire with e-commerce, right, to grow the business and throttle it up. Um, right, the SKU's got to be strong. There's got to be some stickiness there, but now learning about how you can expand from a business that has a warehouse to 3PL, baking into the Amazon world. There's just so much potential, right, and growth opportunity when you're looking at these businesses.
Yeah, definitely. Um, let's talk about leadership now. You touched on it a little bit before, right? I think this is a really important point in business, right? Like generally. So I'd love to know your thoughts on leadership and how you help instill this, right? Like whether it's in your business, in helping the veterans, that are going to be running the businesses and everything like that, to make sure that it's a great organization and it's helping to move forward as well.
Yeah, man, I think it all starts with accountability, right? So our core values are deep relationships with long-term people. And these are things we'll actually talk about when we're speaking with sellers and brokers. One, to quickly disqualify if they want to do business with us. But, deep relationships with long-term people is, we want to know everything about you, right? Like our partners, we are friends. We know about their families. We know, their goals, their passions, their hobbies, their purpose. We want to know that about anybody we do business with. So, understanding that's key, right? And the other core value is um, doing well by doing good. And what that typically means is, um, if your cup isn't full, how are you going to pour into somebody else's cup? So we want to be around high performers that are chasing after, being the best, husband, father, spiritually, mentally, relationally, physically. We want A players on our team, and that rolls right into the third core value, which is A players only. And all that is about is, people that do what they say they're going to do. So, when it comes to the leadership side, one, surrounding ourselves with like-minded individuals, right, that have that passion, that go-getter attitude, aren't going to take no for an answer, willing to get after it. But I look back and kind of, can everybody on my team, as an A player, do we have accountability to get done what we need to get done? And I think, whether it's, making sure that we're all tracking our KPIs, right, individually, so that when we come to talk about this, we're all on top of what we're accountable for again, and that we're achieving the mission and taking steps forward to deliver the value. And then just being clear with the goals, right? I don't tell people what to do. We've already identified what their kind of job role is, their description, the objectives they need to get after. And, it's just being clear, like, again, we're tracking the right KPIs and we're being, transparent with everybody. We know exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there. And I can count on my entire team, right, to I don't have to necessarily micromanage at all. And that'll never really be the way that I approach leadership. But when I think about the CEO role, right? I haven't been a CEO till now, but everything that I've done leading up to this has built me for this role, because my key responsibilities are, setting and communicating the vision. And Bates plays a big role in that as well. I always call him, he's the Steve Jobs on the Wozniak, right? I'm kind of a CEO and a COO. But setting the communication of the vision is massive, and just understanding that, hey guys, like, we're going after 50 businesses, and two is not enough, so let's continue to move forward. Another kind of way that I lead is kind of building and developing leadership. So again, those deep relationships, long-term people, if I can understand your why, your goals, the dream role you want in the future as we scale this business, it's then I can better, start to look for the gaps that we need to start hiring as we scale and as we, create new revenue in the company. Allocating capital and resources is another big one. So understanding, where we need to spend the money, when we need to spend the money, and why we need to spend the money, because every dollar that we're bringing in, has to be put somewhere and doing something for us. Driving the culture and the execution is another big one. I think that goes with kind of setting and communicating the vision, but our culture aligns with the core values, and execution is really comes back to the core value of being an A player. So just, understanding again who we are, what we're going after, who we're serving, and what that really means to us, and then executing on that. And the biggest one, Athin, because this has actually been, the past few weeks, that my biggest focus is solving the hardest problems. So as a leader and in the CEO role, you know, what is our biggest impediment? What is that key theme that keeps showing up on our weekly touch points? And how can I go solve that goal? So, when I approach leadership, there's a number of things I'm thinking about, right? But those are sort of the core focuses for me.
Yeah, love it, man. So awesome there with all of those key points. Um, One thing I just want to quickly touch on is around the deals, right? Because I think a lot of people may think, oh, I'm just gonna like look at a business. Yeah, seems pretty good. Go through a simple process, and I'm just gonna get the deal over the line, right? When it doesn't necessarily work like that, with the amount of deal flow that's needed, the amount of steps that's going, the due diligence, the offers, everything like
100%.
that, to go through. So, do you want to just like picture what it is like in this phase and what's required, you know what I mean, to like get deals over the line so that you can, acquire those companies, for an example, right? To get them under
Oh,
your banner.
yeah. So, we like to leverage the SBA as much as possible, because over the last 40 years, deals that they've funded over $1 million have defaulted 3%. So we're kind of starting on that 97th yard line. We love the SBA's process and protocols. Now we'll also use other lenders as well, but we love their framework. And, when you're dealing with sellers, right? That it's a relationship. You've got to develop a relationship with them and understand again, how can we deliver the most value for you? And what matters to you? Is it your legacy? Is it, the cash up front? How do we negotiate these terms? And you got to get kind of creative, right? Like, especially in e-commerce, and especially when you're dealing with brokers, because the brokers are going to groom the seller, that their baby is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. When in reality, right, we also have to understand if it's a Amazon dependent business, right? There's definitely a lot more growth potential there, and you can't value it based on that. So there's so many. That's a very loaded question, I think, because there's so many things to take a look at, but getting a deal through the line is all about resilience, right? So deals typically take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to close, on average. And through that entire process, you're going through due diligence, which is very painful. Think about like going to the dentist without getting the Novocaine. They're auditing, the entire business, the insurance, the legal side of it, the financial side of it. They need, all the tax returns and balance sheets. They're nitpicking through everything and calling out whys and whats and hows, right? And you're relying on that seller to be, transparent and truthful and, get you the information you need in a timely manner so it doesn't slow down that deal flow. So it's I would say it's like dating, right? You're not, until you close, right? You're not married and you haven't got engaged, and you might not even be official, right? You might just be kind of seeing other people, but having fun with this one person. So you got to court them well. You got to make them feel valuable. And for us, we again, deep relationships with long-term people. We're trying to be as authentic as possible, get them as much money as possible to set their family up for success, while they also understand the vision that we're trying to achieve for the veterans, and have them bought into that. So if they're not bought into that, then it's more than likely not going to work. And in a lot of cases, right, we're trying to keep these sellers, these owner operators in place, right, for at least 24 months, if not, 5 years. We'd love them to be a part of the onboarding process at the veteran and work with our operations teams to ensure that, one, we don't break the baby, and two, that we're able to onboard, those veterans in a much smoother process. And even the vendor relationships, the manufacturing relationships, the key men and women that exist within that business, right, making sure that they're not, going to quit or feel devalued in any way, once that business transitions over to Patriot Growth Capital. And then, lending is lending, right? You, again, through that due diligence process, getting your submission packets together, right? Big pro forma, 24-month pro forma, very granular, a business plan that is incredibly tactical and granular, but you can't overshoot as well. If we know we can grow this business by 30% in year one, lenders don't necessarily like that, right? So you've got to be conservative in the way that you really build your submission packet. And I've learned a lot through going through multiple SBA processes now, that it's a tedious process, takes a lot of time. And again, you've got to keep that relationship solid with the seller, because if anything goes off the rail or pushes out that timeline from close, right, people start to get a little sketchy, right? They start to get a little worrisome, and that could kill a deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah, awesome, man. So much gold that you shared there. Completely agree. And that relationship and just getting things online and what's really required, which I think was really powerful, man. So, yeah, Zach, you've shared so much value with us here today. From your story to what you're doing with Patriot Growth Capital, what you're doing with deals, relationships, all of that, right? The leadership side, which is so important in business. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Keep going. Um, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And there have been so many times through the last 15 months where you think, you ask yourself for a brief second, why am I doing this? But having that core why, and really feeling compelled to serve other people, I mean, that's ultimately, right, like building a business. If there's a problem and you can solve it, right, that's always one key thing. But understanding why you're solving it and being just dead set on solving that problem and continue to go. I mean, the goodness is all on the other side of all the challenges you're expecting. And it's really that's really the metaphor for life too, right? Like, nobody has it easy forever. Somebody's always dealing with something. And when you're in business, you're only discovering new problems. The challenges don't get greater, they just continue to be different, right? And you have to become a problem solver. So, having the purpose, being dead set on your why, and never giving up. I mean, I think that's the best advice I can give anybody.
Yeah, awesome, man. Completely agree. So important. And if you never quit, you always succeed, right? In the end, that's how it works. So
100%.
Yeah, love it. And yeah, we connected through our networks, learned about your awesome journey from your, various sales roles and everything else that you've shared with us today to now being, the founder and CEO of Patriot Growth Capital. You're an awesome guy, so knowledgeable, so much gold that you've shared with us here today. And I'm sure we continue to help veterans, create a legacy of wealth, prosperity, freedom, and honor. Very grateful that we connected. I look forward to partnering with you as well. So, Zack, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
I'd say go to patriotgrowthcapital.com. Find us on LinkedIn as well. We'll have our socials kind of up and running, but if you find us on the web, sign up for our newsletter. We keep everybody in the know on a monthly basis through the newsletter. We have veteran calls once a month as well. We have multiple events. So our nonprofit that Zack Knight, one of our partners, owns and operates called Advancing in Line for Veterans. We have multiple events within, all across North America in Tampa, Texas, San Diego, Atlanta. You can find it all on the Patriot Growth website, but I just recommend everybody find us there. And, and if you want to reach out personally, you also have my contact information there.
Yeah, awesome guys. We'll definitely check out Patriot Growth Capital there on the website, their socials. Zack with the socials as well. Very, very powerful, man. And it's been a pleasure interviewing you here today. And thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you so much, Athin. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.